Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Housecall. We want to make sure that you are aware that all the advices and medical advices we're giving you today is just to help the community, and this is not to change any treatment options. You ultimately have to speak to your doctor and your physicians to make sure what's right for you. We don't have any information about your medical history, but this is just to give way back to the community and make everyone healthier. It's a privilege and honor to be with you, and we have so many questions that have come that we want to answer, but I want to bring you one of my favorite friends. Dr. Sinara Kumar is here, who doesn't really need any introduction. Sinara has been on TV and is a well-known physician in her field of breast cancer and breast surgery, and it's such a pleasure to see another old friend back. Welcome, Sinara, and I hope in the next half an hour we'll have fun together, and also they give tremendous amount of information.
Yes, thank you, David. Thank you so much for having me. It's actually really fun to be back, and especially to be reunited with you. This is a really great time, so thank you.
You're welcome. Sinara, tell us exactly what you've done in the past few years. I remember meeting you at 5:45, getting makeup when we were together, and jumping to TV talking about Alzheimer and many different topics. Right. But I haven't seen you a few years. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing? I know you've been very busy.
I've been very busy. As many of you know, about 6 to 7 years ago, I had my daughter, Olivia, and then I actually around about that time got offered a job in Staten Island University Hospital, which was a change for me from Mount Sinai, but it was a great opportunity for me to build a comprehensive breast center in that community. Staten Island has, out of all the boroughs, has the second highest incidence of breast cancer, but it has the highest mortality rate of breast cancer out of the 5 boroughs in New York City. And so it was really important for me to establish a center within that community, a community that I live in, to provide better access of care for patients. So we started that program back in 2010. It took about 10 years to establish the program. I'm sorry, it took about 5 years to establish, or 2 years to establish a program, but five years to actually build the center. And we just opened officially at the beginning of this year. And it's been really exciting.
Well, that's the statistic that I wasn't aware of. So that's really great work that you're doing. And of course, we're all proud to be part of the Northwell healthcare system. And the extension of the work that this healthcare system is doing from Long Island now to Staten Island, of course here in Manhattan, Atlantic Hill, and really covers a huge geography, and they're able to really give back and take care of many patients all over. So welcome back. We're going, you know, this is a kind of time, the season is changing, you know, it's getting cold out there, and all the questions that's coming up is, how do I protect myself? How do I boost my immune system? And how do I get stronger? We're all going indoor. You're going to have bacteria and germs coming in. So what do you tell your patients this time of the year and what to do?
Well, early spring and late spring and early fall and late fall, when the weather is starting to cool down a little bit, this is the weather that the bugs love. The cold viruses love to grow in this weather. The flu virus, of course, becomes very rampant at this in the beginning of the fall season through to spring. So it is important to really work to boost your immune system. Much of that comes from just getting good rest, not being under a lot of emotional or physical stress, which is difficult in New York City, but everywhere else around the world, maybe it's better. And certainly getting, definitely getting some good rest and having a good diet is really important to include a lot of those antioxidants. I think we've spoken before about vitamins. Vitamin C and vitamin E are very good.
So it's interesting that you're talking about rest, because I covered this topic actually a couple of weeks ago. And I think what we spoke about was that when you actually sleep, all the free radicals that you build up during the day gets cleaned up. And your C-reactive protein actually goes down. All that inflammatory cells disappear, which you mentioned. I know you work out all the time, so tell me a little bit about exercise and what do you recommend to public out there?
Exercise is really important. You know, because every bit of activity that we do is just helping our body break down, as you said, these free radicals. So it's just really important in regards to our overall stamina. So exercise is important. It's good for our health overall. It's good for weight maintenance. But it has been shown to be very, very beneficial with our immune system. Sometimes more beneficial than what we think is beneficial for our immune systems, like the echinaceas and the zincs and the cold lozenges that they said, if you feel a cold, start using them. But blind studies or the controlled studies that they've done in regards to using the echinacea versus just getting good rest hasn't been shown to be as effective. Now, I use them. When my kids start going to school, I start downing the airborne as quickly as I can because I know they're bringing back tons of germs. But having said that, it really does come down to exercise and rest as being actually probably the two most important factors.
You know, it's interesting because my wife gives me the same exact thing. Right around time, you know, we are tired and you're fatigued, you're not getting enough sleep. So she gives me all this echinacea, and I agree. There's not real science behind this.
Right.
But the main thing, as you talked about exercise, is really the fact that it reduces your cortisol level, and that can actually boost up your immune system. So you're 100% on the money. When it comes to nutrition, we talk about, like, people go out there and they buy all these vitamin C's and they start taking load of them. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of this. I think if you can get your vitamin C from citrus fruits, if you can get it from grapefruit, from broccoli, from fresh fruits and vegetables, that's probably what I would recommend, because you know, orange has a lot of ascorbic acid, reduces inflammation. Don't you agree?
I agree, and I think with some of the vitamins we can overdo it. So we overdo the vitamin C or we overdo the vitamin E, and some of that can actually have bad side effects. So vitamin C, if you're taking too much of it, can lead to kidney stones and other disorders. Vitamin E, if you're taking too much of that, that can also affect your bleeding. So you tend to bruise more easily. If you're going for procedures, you tend to bleed more from those procedures. So you don't want to overdo the supplements. What we can get from a healthy diet is really all the extra nutrients that we need. And also remember too, what our body doesn't use, it just excretes one way or another.
That's a very good point you're bringing. So more is not merrier, and just because you're taking all these vitamin E's and A's, there are side effects, headaches, dizziness. You can actually affect liver toxicity. So always talk to your doctor before you take these vitamins, because it can interact with a lot of other medications that's in your body.
Exactly.
And it's true, a lot of people, I'm glad you brought that point up, a lot of people don't know that vitamin E can affect your bleeding, and making sure that anybody that goes for surgery to stop them at least 2 weeks before. So I brought that up. I also have zinc over here. I'm glad you brought it up, because we give it to men to stay healthy, but it is true that it has a lot of boost in immune system. We never really covered vitamin D, and maybe we should do a whole segment about this. But vitamin D is another big ticket here also.
Vitamin D is very good for the immune system, but vitamin D has been shown to be really effective in reducing cancers. So especially the inflammatory cancers like colon cancer and breast cancer. So vitamin D is very, very effective in that. It's a controversial subject, because what level is the right level? We have our own normal levels, but is that right for everybody? Different ethnicities metabolize vitamin D differently than other ethnicities, so maybe their vitamin D levels aren't necessarily going to be the same as other populations. So it's it's a bit of a controversial issue. They do say if you're going to supplement, you want to supplement with vitamin D3, not D2, because your vitamin D levels actually go higher with using the D3 form as opposed to the D2.
The active form. Obviously, if you are out there, which we don't have a lot of sun, and we're not going to have a lot of it in the next few months, but you will get it from sunshine. You get tons of vitamin D, and I agree with you. I think when it comes to multiple sclerosis, diabetes, many type of cancers, vitamin D is like a stand-alone player. This guy, I don't even call him another vitamin. I think there should be a whole Emmy Award for vitamin D standing by himself, because it really is a hormone that interacts with a lot of things.
Exactly.
You know, it's very interesting. A lot of people give me compliment because they say, oh, you know, you're a surgeon, and also now you have Dr. Kumar, who's a surgeon. And these guys are talking about herbs and vitamins, but you know, you can't finish this segment without talking about garlic. And you know, garlic is something that we all grew up. Of course, you don't eat it because you're worried about your girlfriend and your boyfriend, and it kills all the vampires. But at the same time, it kills all the bugs and viruses too.
Right.
So what do you?
No, I mean, garlic is a phenomenal plant that we eat. We should consume it. It's good in regards to our probiotic levels and bacterial levels within our gut system, which is very important for our immune system. So no, it is really good. But I will string it around my daughter when she starts dating.
That's a good point. I'm glad I should do it for my daughter as well. So you know, talk about garlic. When you chop garlic, you're going to get the actual main component of this, which is allicin. and that's not the name of someone's daughter. It's actually a
Right.
component of garlic. And what allicin does, it actually activates the T killer cells. So your immune system is a defense mechanism, and you know it's supposed to protect you against viruses and
Right.
all these cancer cells. So allicin can actually like get these killer cells, your lieutenants and the army, to really go out and fight. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about this. I also have sweet potatoes that has a lot of like vitamin A, that which you
Yes.
mentioned. I think that's also a major antioxidant. So if you like to have that, this is the time of the year, add sweet potato. And I like my food sometimes spicy. So I know cayenne, and I know you like
Yes.
also a lot of stuff spicy. So that also has a lot of antioxidant in hot pepper. Capsaicin
Yes.
makes you sweat and makes you this. So that's good. You mentioned something about green tea. And I know green tea is a big ticket also with
Yes.
the immune system. Tell us a little bit about
Well,
this.
green tea is a tremendous antioxidant, probably one of the best antioxidants that you can have. So it is really important for boosting immune system. It's good for, it actually can be good for weight loss as well. So I really like green tea. I think it does have some caffeine in it, so it's not caffeine free for sure, although you can get caffeine free forms. So it is a good way to start your day as opposed to that cup of coffee that can actually sometimes end up pulling you down a little bit. So I like green tea a lot. I think it's very effective for our immune systems.
And I think one of the Sunday House Call favorite item is also turmeric. Turmeric
Yes.
also is the one that a lot of you like it. It's anti-inflammatory, so you can add that to your food. And finally, you know, I want to make sure that we cover the fact that hand wash and the importance of hand wash. Whether it's these lotions that you can put, you know, the hand lotion in your pocket. We all walk around with them
Yes.
in the hospital. We're all exposed to this kind of bacteria. So wash your hands with soap for about 20 seconds and make sure you really get into the areas of the fingers where bacteria can sit there.
Right.
And avoid like touching any of your eyes and areas where the bacteria can get in.
Yeah, hand washing is key, and it's probably why so many germs are passed around with the smaller kids. And you see it really, it showed really well with all the small kids. I know because I have small ones, so I see it
How
all
old
the
are the
time.
kids now?
They're 6 and about to be 7 and 1. So,
Oh my God, so
yeah.
your hands
So they're
really-
all around. And actually, you know, they've done shows or tests and things like that where they've shown how much stuff has actually been picked up by kids. And I remember going to one of their classes, to my eldest daughter's class one day, and doing an experiment on how many germs we pick up, and showed them with using flour and what happens when you touch something else and then the flour gets moved from their hands to the other person. But that's what germs are. Germs just get moved around like that. And you know, little kids are touching everything, and that's why they're always sick. But washing hands is exceedingly important to keeping us healthy.
Well, you know, there's no question that there are a lot of germs out there, and I don't know how much we can wash and clean and etc. I see my wife all the time with Clorox in the airplanes, washing all these seats and everything. So we can do a lot of that. But the bottom line is, we want to make sure that people get healthy. We want to make sure that their immune system is getting stronger.
Exactly.
There are things that you can do, and one of those items that I want to go to the next segment is really talk about flu shots. And I know this is the time of the year that, you know, not only in the hospitals, but all the primary care doctors start talking about flu shots. I know it's time because I see the sign that says, spread the word, not the germ. And
Right.
I know it's
Right.
time for me to get
Right.
my flu shot.
Right.
So we announced this online, and so many people asked questions about flu shots. So did you know that about 20% of Americans actually get flu every year? 200,000 Americans, I didn't know this, this is like unbelievable. 200,000 Americans get hospitalized and 36,000 die from flu. So this is a serious issue. But they had questions for us that I want you to kind of shed some light on this. Can you get sick from a flu shot? Some people claim that when they get the flu shot, they get really sick. What's
Right.
the whole myth and truth about flu shot?
Really, the only people that are going to get really sick from a flu shot is if you have an allergy to what the flu shot is made up. Usually it's they have an allergy to eggs. So if you don't know that you have the allergy, then yes, unfortunately you can get an allergic reaction. But that's not the same as getting sick from the flu. And oftentimes people do think they get sick. But what happens is that usually it takes about 24 to 48 hours, usually 48 hours, for the vaccine to start to really start to work basically and start to build up your immune system against it. So that's when people may start to feel like they're under the weather a little
Feverish.
bit, maybe feverish, but that's really your immune system starting to build up against the antibody from the vaccine. So you're not really getting the flu. If you've ever gotten the flu, which I have unfortunately, and you may have as well, but you're miserable. You are really miserable for days, and that's not the same as what you're feeling maybe that 48 hours after you've gotten a flu shot.
So that's when, you know, your soldiers and lieutenants and defense mechanism are loading up all the missiles up there, getting ready to become a rocket man. So they say that we use in politics now. So that's when your defense mechanism is getting ready, and that's you may see a little feverish or redness at the site of the injection. And it also takes about a couple of weeks for your body to be ready for this, right? It takes a while. So
it does take, they say it takes about 2 weeks. So you don't want to wait too late into the flu season to take your flu shot. It's better if you take it by around October when it becomes available in October. But it's better late than never. So if you haven't taken it and it's coming around December, then just go ahead and get it anyway, because the flu season really ends around March, but the peak of it is between October and into January.
Look, Sinara, I think the only way that this vaccination would work, if you have only 30% of the country is going to get vaccination and the rest are not going to do it, it will defeat the whole purpose of this, because the bug can still go around. So you really need to have a mass population to get this. Obviously, if you're immunocompromised, if you're pregnant, if you're allergic to eggs, as you mentioned, you need to speak to your doctor about this. But anybody over the age of 6 months, they should go and speak to their doctor and find out if they should get the flu vaccine, and that's really important. There's another, go ahead.
Well, you may have noticed people are talking now that they don't want to go this year because last year they got sick, or the year before they got sick, they took the vaccine and then they got sick, so what's the point because they got the flu?
That's a good point.
And yes, you can get sick from a strain of the flu that the vaccine may not have protected us against. So unfortunately that is possible, and it does happen. In fact, they say that the flu vaccine only really helps about 40 to 60%, or reduce your risk by about 40 to 60%. But that's better than nothing, and it certainly for the most part can help against most of them. So I'm hearing that a lot, but it's so important to go get it. And especially if you have young ones under the age of 6 months who cannot take the flu vaccine, because your only way of protecting them is by you not getting sick.
So that's a very good point, because these vaccines are not 100% bulletproof, and you may still get it, and they predict what strain of flu it's going to be, one of these H3N2s, and if that year they don't get it right, a lot of people may still go ahead and get the flu. So that doesn't mean that you should not get it. That's the whole point. And every year that strain can change. So
and then speaking, I think, to that 34,000 that are dying from the flu, which in 2012 was upwards around 56,000 people, is that it's really important to get treated early. So if you think you have the flu, even if you're not sure, but it's pretty obvious when you do get sick with the flu, is to go and get treatment early, because they have Tamiflu, which is the medication. It's the antiviral medication that they give you if you have come down with it. And it works within 48 hours. You start to feel, even 24 hours, you start to feel tremendously better. And the earlier you get treated, the better. So if you stay sick with the flu for a longer period of time, that's when it really, really can kick your butt, for less of a lack of a better term.
So Tamiflu, I'm glad you brought it up. I actually so that basically shortens the period of flu, and you can talk to your doctor about this. But the numbers are just incredible. The fact that Americans are losing 111 million lost days of work, about $7 billion just from the flu, which can be easily preventable. The other thing that I would suggest to people is how many times you see in hospitals out there that people just cough or sneeze, and it's just like out there.
I know, drives me crazy.
Please cover your mouth.
Cover up.
Or if you want to sneeze, at least try to cover your sleeve. So because these droplets, I mean, there are electronic pictures and images of these droplets that basically goes maybe up to 10 feet away. it stays on the seat and doorknobs, and somebody touches it, and once they go and rub their eyes, or
Right.
they can get into the mucosa. So that's really important. Anything else you want to add to this whole flu?
No, I think it's
vaccine?
all really important. I think absolutely cover up, and certainly washing your hands even when you're sick is actually very important, because you're touching everything all the time. So
You're
that's
afraid of
important
the
too.
needle. Now they have like nasal ones.
They do have the nasal, although they said this year they're not necessarily recommending the nasal for this year's vaccine. So if you can tolerate the needles, you're better off with the injection than with the spray.
And I think if you're pregnant, you should probably stay away from the whole nasal injection.
Definitely from the nasal. Right,
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to take about a minute break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about your gut. And you think you're all human, but you're probably not. We'll find out what part of you is human and what part of you is all bacteria and yeast and viruses. Did you know that there are trillions of these bacteria running around in your body? So I would tell you that probably you're 10% human, 90% probably like bacteria. And I'm going to hear my good friend Dr. Coomer, who is going to shed light on what's in your gut, what we can do to improve good bacteria versus bacteria. We'll be right back. Are you getting up in the middle of the night many times to urinate? Are you suffering from sexual dysfunction? Do you know what your PSA level is? Have you been diagnosed with prostate cancer? If you have answered yes to any of these questions, please come and see me at our Men's Health Center in the heart of Manhattan. My name is Dr. David Samadi. I have committed my entire life to not only save you, but most importantly, to save your quality of life.
Trust your health in the hands of prostate cancer treatment and robotic surgery expert Dr. David Samadi, because having cancer doesn't mean you have to suffer.
Stuff is when the gut flora. Okay, we're back again. Welcome back, and you can send your questions live to drsamaditv.com, and we'll try to answer them either today, and if we don't get to it, we'll do that next week with Dr. Coomer. I want to also remember, any advice that we give you is not to change your treatment options. This is just to kind of advise you and give you some information, but you always talk to your doctor.
Right.
Sinara, I want to talk about something that's about 5 feet in length, and it's responsible for a lot of our not only diseases, but also like our mental and mood disorders, etc. And believe it or not, I found out that there are 1,000 species living in this 5 feet organ, and trillions of them. What do you think that is, since we are trying to bring it up?
Well, I'm thinking it's the small gut, the small intestines.
We're talking about the gut. So the gut, you know, how important is your gut,
Right.
and what's down there? And again, there's a whole ecosystem. There's a whole system in your gut of all these viruses, yeast, bacteria, fungus. I know it sounds gross, and I know it's only like a new
Only the yeast part sounds
are,
gross.
but we're trying to help you. And you've heard about the good bacteria and bad bacteria. When the balance is fairly good, you're healthy. When the balance goes to bad bacteria over good bacteria, then you're in trouble.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what these bacteria are doing and how they affect our health.
Well, to be honest, I didn't actually realize this until I was looking more into it recently, is that it accounts for 80% of our immune system, what goes through our small intestine. Isn't that amazing? And that's why I guess it's kind of good to be focused around your GI system a lot. But the probiotics that we put into our system are so incredibly important in keeping the bad bacteria in check. So there's good bacteria in our small gut or small intestine, and there's bad bacteria. And the key is to keep those in balance with each other. They say you want to keep that about 9-to-1, so the ratio of 9-to-1. So 9 times more good bacteria than bad bacteria is the way to keep that in balance. But it's so incredibly important in protecting what passes through our digestive system into the rest of our body. Can really protect you against certain bacterial infections. It's really important.
Also, the speed of the way the stool passes through, because if that balance is not good and it's going to go slower, you're going to get constipated, you're going to have bloating, you're going to be gassy after any food, and then you become allergic to the glutens, and your body really goes out of sync.
Yes.
And based on the studies that I did, even your anxiety and your mood can change as a result of this imbalance in your gut. So this is so not just your immune system, but digestions, absorbing all the nutrients and your vitamins that we spoke about. So this is really, really important. But I wanted to make you a comment about this. So there's a great study, and I love this, because they looked at the mice study, and they gave the mice some like artificial sweetener, and the mice actually became diabetic. And they took the stool of that mice and they transplanted it into a healthy mice. And guess what happened? That mice also converted and became diabetic.
Wow.
So we're going to be diagnosing your diseases based on your stool and the genes that's there. Then there are millions.
That's not that appealing, though.
I know. Well,
sorry. I'm not bringing in my sample. But sorry.
All right. So and so we deal as doctors in the hospital with antibiotics. And tell me a little bit about like what happens when, you know, so many doctors may or may not give these antibiotics that may not be necessary. So what does it do to your gut?
Well, antibiotics are a killer for a probiotic balance. So, you know, you definitely want to only use antibiotics when you really, really have to, because it not only kills off those bad bacteria, but the good bacteria as well. So it is important to use those as needed. The other thing that's interesting, that's very important in regards to maintaining your probiotic level, is not consuming a lot of tap water that has fluoride and chlorine in, because that can also kill off, just like antibiotics are an antiseptic, it's the same thing as those. So,
you know, a lot of you probably have heard of C. difficile, and what happens is when you actually like take the antibiotics, all the good bacteria is gone, and C. difficile is responsible for 500,000 people affected. 29,000 people die from C. difficile. And it's scary because you can do the best operation. Fortunately, we haven't had a lot of issues because we kept the hospital really clean, and every hospital attempts to have a much lower level of C. difficile, but it's unavoidable because these bugs are in your bowel, and they can cause colitis, they can cause megacolon, they can cause like severe diarrhea. And my advice is, if you're going to the hospital or you're going to the doctor, always take some probiotic a couple of weeks before to build up your good bacteria, and I think that's really important.
Right, right. And you can get, you want to aim for 1 million CFUs a day, which is the colony forming units, but you don't have to necessarily supplement with that. If you have yogurt or kefir in your diet, or even sauerkraut, also you know, artichokes, garlic are all good for supplying probiotics.
What was that dose again? And is that like any probiotic that people can buy from outside, or?
Well, yes, you want to aim for 1 million CFUs a day, but if you do some of your own research and look up the amounts in yogurt, look up in the amount of what you're actually digesting, if you're not getting enough because you're not eating those foods that are required, then also you need to supplement it.
Good. So that's really important. Probiotic. This is a live virus that sometimes you have to keep it refrigerated, and talk to your doctor about this. I think it's important. We only have 2 minutes left, and it's unfortunately how fast time goes. We're having too much fun over here, and I hope this is important. So send us your questions. I just want to go through Mediterranean diet, which is unfair to cover this in 2 minutes. It's my favorite topic. I grew up in that part of the world, near Greece and Italy, and this was the way of our life. You know, in the living room it was always fruits and vegetables, big bowl of like fruits, and that was our hospitality. Wine was there, olive oil was there. Tell me about Mediterranean diet.
I love the Mediterranean diet. It's not only good for your immune system because there are probiotics in it, but it's also good for fighting cancer. It's good for cardiac disease. It's good for cognitive disorders. It's good for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I think the Mediterranean diet, if it could be the cure-all of all diseases. I think it's such an incredibly important diet.
And there are a lot of studies have done among the Greek community that they are healthier when they stick to this kind of diet. Whether it's the benefit of red wine, which we both appreciate, or dark chocolate, which I know you love, that's really important, or whether, you know, the salmon that I've been talking about, the omega-3 fatty acid covers your heart, the olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, is absolutely important. But all the beans and legumes and things that comes with Mediterranean diet is absolutely, the fruits and vegetables really is important.
Very important. The antioxidants that come from it, the bright fruits and vegetables that you're encouraged to eat are so incredibly important.
Anything else you want to add?
I had a great time today. This was fun.
All right, so we are going to have more of Dr. Coomer with us. Next week we're going to have Dr. Doris Day. And you know what else is good for your health? Good music. Okay, you can have all the diet, but if you don't have good music, you're not going to be healthy.
That's right.
So this is for you. And if you have any requests, let me know. See you next week, guys.